The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt. So get ready, nerds, because we're watching Highlander 1 through 3. But remember, there can be only one good movie.
Hello, this is Leonard Nimoy, and it is my pleasure to take you on an amazing journey into a world of fantasy and adventure. The world of the Highlander.
Welcome to the Salty Nerd Podcast, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the Highlander movies 1 through 3, and we're going to have a great time with this one. So get ready, because we've been really looking forward to this. This is a coronavirus version of the Salty Nerd Podcast. We've had some exposure within the crew, so we're doing everything we can to keep everybody safe. Everybody is completely healthy and fine, so you guys don't have to worry about us, but we just want to make sure we're taking some precautions before we go to the Star Trek convention coming up in a couple weeks. We want to make sure everybody's nice and clean and healthy before we go. I am joined, as always, by my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with the barbarian space Viking, Mr. Vader himself. What's up, sir?
Oh, I'm just really pumped. I'm kind of bummed because we're not all there together right now.
I know, me too.
Because let me tell you something. The second of these three movies it absolutely needs as much vodka and whiskey
Scotch
as we can possibly consume.
Are you all out of booze at your house, Vader? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. It's just this is definitely a drink worthy set of movies.
Yeah, I had a lot of drinks while I was watching them.
Yes, for sure.
Speaking of the drinker herself, Miss Jude.
Hello.
Even when I'm not in the studio, I still catch you trying to take a sip. Welcome, Jude. How are you doing?
Problems. Hi, how are you?
Good. And of course, the hardest working nerd I know, Mr. Kadish. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, it's a real shame that we couldn't have everyone in the studio, but Jude and I are fully vaccinated, and we had like a issue where someone who lives with us has
My child has coronavirus.
Yeah.
He tested positive. He's okay. He's asymptomatic, but we didn't want to risk exposing anyone else to our plague-ridden house.
Yeah, so we're doing this special kind of like thing where Jude and I are in the studio, but Vader and Alex unfortunately have to kind of call in from home, so it's this weird virtual podcast that we're not used to doing.
Yeah, so
we're in our own sub basements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if we're gonna catch corona from somewhere, it's gonna be from the goddamn convention, not from each
Yeah.
other.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But also,
Just
we want to make
kidding.
sure that we can actually go to the convention. Like, I would hate for it. Like, we've been looking forward to this and planning it for almost a year now.
Yeah.
Like, being able to go to the Star Trek convention is going to be the highlight, I think, of our year as far as the podcast goes. So we want to make sure everybody's nice and healthy before we go. That way we don't have to worry about spreading it there or spreading it to each other. We're good. We got a couple weeks before that happens, so I think we'll be all right. All right, guys, let's get into it. Reminder, we're going to start off with the first Highlander movie. But before we do, we're going to take a break to listen to some sponsors. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, if you'd like to support the podcast, go to saltynerdclub.com. There you can find our Patreon page, and you can get exclusive access to all kinds of really cool stuff. We have behind-the-scenes photos. We have exclusive pods. We have blooper reels. And also, we're adding a new section to our Discord app, which is exclusive just for Patreon members. So you can hang out with the other supporters and talk about the podcast, talk about movies that you want us to watch, and all kinds of cool stuff. And you get to chat with the hosts themselves. I'm always there. Vader's there a lot. Jude pops in every once in a while with some GIFs and memes. But we have a great time. So go to saltynerdclub.com and join the Salty Nerd Club and join us and help support the podcast so we can make awesome content for you. All right, let's get into this. Jude, Highlander, the first movie. Take it away.
All right.
What is this movie all about?
1986 Highlander, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour 56 minutes. This had a budget of $16 million. What do you guys think it brought into the box office?
75 million.
Vader?
I wouldn't even be able to guess. I have no idea, because to me this movie's it's a cult classic, but I don't know if it did good in the theaters or not. 50 million?
Sean Connery's in it.
That doesn't matter. 150 million.
Okay, so the budget was $16 million. This little gem brought in $12 million to the
No,
box
yeah, okay.
office.
See, I was right the first time.
Yeah, you should have gone with your
bombed.
gut. Are you ready for
Yeah.
the synopsis?
Go for it.
All right. Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod is an immortal Scottish Highlander exiled from his home in the 16th century. Today, he's Russell Nash, an antique dealer. He's had many lives and loved several blonde ladies, and one time a Spanish Sean Connery trained him in the art of swordsmanship. He's spent centuries fighting other immortals and getting more powerful, and when it's down to him and Kurgan, the only other remaining immortal, there can be only one.
Oh my gosh, this movie, guys. So I've seen it like once or twice, but a long time ago, and I completely forgot about
Oh
most
my
of this
God,
movie.
really?
Yeah,
Once or twice?
once or twice. This is
I've
not
never
something
seen it
that's
before. This was a first
See-
watch for me.
See, and that's what I was super interested in. I have seen this movie probably 50 times.
Mhm.
wow.
This is like right in my zone
Yeah,
of like
this movie
weird 80s movies that I just love.
This is on my list of movies that I'm ashamed to say I had never seen before.
Right.
So
Because
I feel like I should have seen this a million times before that.
I was super curious what you specifically were going to think about this movie, because you like movies that are
Yeah.
like this.
Uh-huh.
You know, I didn't realize it had done so poorly.
Right.
12 million. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
bizarre to me.
Honestly, none of them have done so great that it's
Right.
unfathomable why there are so many of them. Especially
Correct.
considering that there can only be one.
Plus a TV series that
Yeah.
went for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We tried to watch the 4th installment last night and we just quit.
Yeah.
So this, I think Sean Connery is what makes this movie a cult classic, because his character is so absurd. He's like, my name is Juan Ramirez.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
Egyptian.
born
You've got
24
a Scottish guy playing the Spanish guy.
And,
From
and,
Egypt.
and a French guy playing a Scotsman.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
the whole thing is so
It's absurd.
It's absurd. Good
Yeah.
word.
Yes.
Yes.
But what's even more absurd is Sean Connery's character is originally an Egyptian
Yeah.
Yeah.
who
I mean,
becomes a
obviously.
Spaniard
Yes.
Yeah.
and who speaks with a Scottish accent.
Yes.
It's so great. I love it.
Yes.
I was born 2,400 years ago in Egypt. I've had 3 wives, which tells you a lot about women.
Makiko.
My last,
Yeah.
my last wife was Japanese. That's why I carry a katana. It's so ridiculous.
It's so good.
It's so funny, and that, like the rules in this movie are kind of it makes me laugh too, because the famous line, there can be only one,
Mhm.
except for the other 9 I haven't told you about.
Except
already.
for well, there's me and also
Yeah.
you.
and
Well,
the
they're-
Russian.
There's a
And the-
bunch.
They're in a tournament. There can only
Yeah.
be one at the end.
Yeah. I also
Yeah,
think
but
it's go ahead.
when's the end though?
When there's only one.
Okay.
And then we
when-
recycle.
when the gathering happens and whoever's left, they all
Mhm.
go to New York City and they hang out, drink some beers, and then they cut each other's heads off.
Yeah.
It's not that
Yeah.
complicated, man.
That one guy, he was just like he couldn't wait for the gathering. He had to approach him in
I
a
know, right?
parking garage.
That
Yeah.
parking garage fight scene was glorious though.
I
You know,
loved
and-
it.
And you have a lot more of these guys that over the years they're all kind of like just randomly meet around the world.
Uh-huh.
And and he's like, okay, well, we're here together, so I guess we have to cut. One of us has to lose a head,
Yeah. Unless
so
it's
the other
Holy
one
Grail.
can. Yes, the other one can suck your. So we can suck your power in. Because they're
immortal-
basically all.
Immortal
They're
juice.
all basically energy vampires.
Yes.
Yeah.
Essentially. So yeah, it's just
So can I ask a question then? So
Of
if
course.
Sean Connery's one of the immortals,
Mhm.
and why is he bothering to train somebody who eventually would have to kill him if they both survive?
You know what, Alex? That is a fair question. And I think the answer to that is there can be only one.
Okay.
yeah, but he doesn't want it to be easy. You don't want it to be easy in the end. You have to have a good fight.
Yeah, great.
So there is actually a reason for that.
Oh, leave it to you
Okay.
to have researched
No,
this
there
nonsensical
is a little
movie.
bit.
Yeah. So basically, whoever wins the prize is what it's called. At least in this first movie,
Uh-huh.
I can't speak to the movies that come after.
And
but
before we even get into that, am I correct in my assumption that what the prize is changes from movie to movie?
sort of.
Okay.
Sort of,
Okay.
yeah.
So basically, here's the deal. So Kurgan is the most powerful. Kurgan.
Okay, Kurgan.
Okay, so Kurgan is the most powerful immortal currently because he's killed the most people.
Mhm.
And whoever wins the prize, they have an effect on the entire world. So if Kurgan wins, or Kurgan?
Kurgan.
Okay, so if Kurgan wins, basically he would plunge humanity into darkness and evil would rule the land.
Oh.
And so basically Sean
that
Connery's
clear in the movie?
character
Yes.
Connery's character is going through training good people to try to defeat Kurgan so that he doesn't win the prize. Kurgan, whatever. Clancy Brown.
It's
Okay.
the Kurgan.
Yeah.
It's actually more like it's more of a title.
Kurgan, comma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why Sean Connery is seeking out other immortals to try to
Okay.
train them, because he knew that Kurgan was specifically trying to kill McLeod, so he wanted to prepare him so that he could defeat Kurgan,
Okay.
so that he wouldn't make it to the gathering.
Okay.
You were talking about how you think Sean Connery is the reason this movie has had such good legs over the centuries.
Clancy Brown.
I was just gonna say I think it's the Kurgan. I think it's Clancy Brown.
The bad guys.
I mean, his all. How you doing, ladies? It's better to burn out and fade away and blah blah blah. It's all this kind of stuff. He's such a cool, iconic villain.
This
You-
is the
you know,
movie.
it's just-
This is the movie that put Clancy Brown on the map.
Oh, yeah.
Before this movie, nobody knew who he was, and after
Right.
this movie, he became the Clancy Brown.
Mhm.
Like he made that character so iconic. Because originally in the script, he was written as kind of like a darker, more serious character. And when Clancy Brown came in, he's like, I'm going to make this guy a barbarian, a modern day barbarian. And it was really interesting, the choices he made with that character.
I had a Dungeons and Dragons character that I based off the Kurgan. He was an anti-paladin. I always played evil characters, even in my D&D days.
Maybe that's why I'm so drawn to you.
I don't know. Maybe I like the bad guys.
I love evil
Yeah.
power.
You're in trouble, Matt. You're in trouble. You better get a little more evil, buddy.
I'm way more evil than you, Vader. I'm sure of that.
You're more of a dog. You're more of a Doctor Evil type, and I'm more of a just I'm just gonna.
I'm
destroy
a
you.
Lex Luthor type.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I do want to say I really appreciated his efforts in trying to hide his identity with the pins on his neck,
Oh yeah.
so that he hid the wound from his ineffectual beheading.
That was his whole outfit with like the leather
It
and
just
the
got better
chainmail.
and better.
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I love the armor from the original, the flashback scene.
Oh, it's great.
Where he's in full warrior mode, but the modern time version of that with like the torn up leather and the chainmail and the safety pins on his neck. I was
Yeah.
like, this is freaking classic.
I mean, I think of all of the movies I've seen so far, he's definitely the best bad guy, and I think that's probably why this is my favorite.
And that was all Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
And when he shaves his head, he just looks so freaking weird.
Oh god!
Yeah.
And his hair, his actual hair, is like poking through the bald cap that's on his head. Priceless,
I know, right?
amazing.
Like he actually pissed off Sean Connery in the scene where Kurgan fights, Connery's character. So there's
Juan Ramirez.
Yeah, Juan Ramirez. So there's a scene where he like breaks into the castle where Sean Connery's with McLeod's wife,
Heather.
and he was supposed to swing his sword and break the table in half. And when Clancy Brown came in, he was so in character that he like just narrowly missed hitting Connery and like broke this like candle thing like right in front of
Oh my
him.
God.
And Connery got pissed and he was like, I need to use my stunt double more often. but Clancy Brown had to go and apologize to him. He's like, I'm sorry, man. I got a bit carried away there.
I was in the moment.
Yeah. But it's funny because Sean Connery, so they hired him to do 7 days of work for $1.6 million. And at the time, this was a low budget movie. That was a lot of money for 7 days of work. And Connery didn't believe that they could get everything they needed him to do in 7 days. Like he had a bet with the director, Russell Mulcahy, and he was like, I don't think you can get everything you need from me in 7 days, but I'm going to take my money regardless. And so Mulcahy, it was kind of interesting. What makes this film such a cult classic And, you know, like we're watching this, you know, 40 years after it came out, is that Russell Mulcahy was a music video director. And this was kind of like just at the start of when music video directors were able to cross over into directing feature films. And so the visual style for this movie was so unique at the time because he brought his kind of music video experience to the movie with like quick cuts and like very stylized kind of camera angles and things of that nature, that this movie didn't look like anything that was out at the time. And it was originally a Warner Brothers picture, and Warner Brothers did not know how to market this thing. They had no clue what to do with it. And so in America, it flopped miserably because Warner Brothers just didn't market it right. But overseas, it was like a huge thing because they actually marketed it correctly. And on home video is where it really found its legs, and it became like this cult classic. So it made like a ton of money on home video, which is why, you know, they decided to eventually make a sequel. But this is one of those cult movies where like I've watched this thing, not as much as Vader, but like I've seen it numerous times. And it's always like a joy to watch because it's so kind of far out there and crazy, and it's very original. Like nothing like this had ever been made before. The concept behind it of like these immortals dueling each other and the whole like there can be only one line has become so iconic.
It takes itself so seriously.
It really does.
That you can't take any of it seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's funny because Christopher Lambert, like we talked about Sean Connery and Clancy Brown, Christopher Lambert, this was his first American film. He had done like a couple Tarzan movies in France, which kind of put him on the map, but he didn't know how to speak English. So when they cast,
you don't say.
Yeah, well, when they cast him, he couldn't speak English, and they were like, "Did we just cast a guy who can't speak English?" And so he like did this in 6 weeks. He learned how to speak English, which is pretty impressive. But
I think heavy on the ish in English.
Yeah,
there's I think this movie, I'm going to probably like, just as a question you'll ask me later, but in my movies that I've watched the most, I think this is probably easily in my top 10 movies of all time. Yeah. It's just one of those movies that for some reason, somehow it's always kind of resonated with me. And I don't know what it is because I'm not ever really been a big cult movie person. I hate low budget movies. You guys know this, right?
Yeah.
But there's something about this movie that I just like.
Oops.
Yeah, there's some of that, but it wasn't necessary though in this movie. Really, it's like it is in all the other movies, but I don't know. It didn't really make sense. But there's just from the opening scene of this movie with the Queen music and the Freebirds going to the ring in the stadium and the sword fight in the parking structure and it's just a cool movie.
Yeah.
And then how they do the crazy flashbacks to old Scotland and stuff, and it's just an interesting movie how they set it up and how they told the story to me. It was just something clicked with me in that, and I'm not really sure why or what, but it's swords and it's armor and cool music, and I think maybe there's some of that music video director stuff kind of being thrown in there. I kind of see that now, and it's just an awesome fun movie for me.
I'll say that one of the things that makes this movie so cool is the Queen soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like that opening song where it's like, I am immortal, like that whole thing. It just really sets the stage for like, the movie that's to come. And none of the other movies utilize Queen. Like I almost feel like they should have just licensed that opening song and just used it to kind of tie all the movies together. But then of course they didn't do that. But what was interesting is that so originally Kurt Russell was cast as Connor McLeod.
Get the fuck out.
No, like
I could see that.
They actually had him sign on, but then he had to drop out for some type of like scheduling reason. I also think Goldie Hawn told him not to make this movie for some reason.
Oh, that bitch.
And
I'm just kidding. I love Goldie Hawn.
He actually went and did Big Trouble in Little China instead of this movie.
Okay, you know what? Solid choice. Solid choice.
But he was actually cast to play the main role in this, and then after he dropped out, they went and they signed Christopher Lambert. So
is it Lambert or
it's Lambert.
It's Lambert.
He's French, So say it French.
Okay.
Lambert.
Christopher Lambert.
It's just it's hitting my ear all wrong every time Katie says it.
Speaking of that actor, the whole time I was watching this movie, I kept looking, squinting at him. I'm like, I feel like I've seen his face somewhere else.
You have.
Like,
yeah.
No,
sure.
not just that, but I honestly get him and Thomas Jane confused.
I could see that.
They look so similar. I was like, is that like a really?
I think there's a big age gap, but I could see it.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying in the Highlander movie, because he's younger in this movie. I kept looking at him. I'm like, that guy looks just like the dude who played the Punisher.
Yeah.
In the 2004 one.
He played Raiden in the original Mortal Kombat movie.
Yes, this is true.
Lambert did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why. Again, see, I thought that was Thomas Jane. I get these two guys look really similar to me. But anyway, I have a ton of fun with this movie. I don't think I struggle to say that it's good because it's just kind of goofy. It's low budget, like you guys were saying.
You'd be very careful.
You're right.
It's not very careful right now.
It's great.
The fight scenes are kind of goofy and dumb. High five, virtual high five. But it's just there's something about it, man. It's got a charm to it, and I think Clancy Brown 100% makes it worthwhile. Like you're watching him, like especially that scene where he's in the church and he's just like teasing the nun. Oh my god, dude, it's perfect.
Like,
how you doing, ladies?
Licking the priest's hand.
Well, it's funny because Clancy Brown, I think he did like a interview at one point, and he said that in his kind of research for the character, that the Krugen, is that how you pronounce it?
Kurgan.
Kermit.
There's no.
Okay. I keep thinking of the coffee maker, the Kruger.
Okay, listen, you're doing this on purpose now.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Okay.
You're doing this on purpose.
So he said in this interview that in his research, the Kurgan, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good job.
The Kurgan lived before Christianity was a thing. And so whenever he's in a Christian church or a Catholic church, he looks at it as just a bunch of like kind of like loony cult members because like he grew up in a time where like Christianity wasn't a thing. And that's why he was like, acting the way he did in the church. And I thought that was like really interesting kind of like character choice.
Yeah.
I love it how he just walks in there and just starts smashing the candles down. These are dumb. Like, just doing everything he can to just annoy people.
Yeah, but one of the interesting things about this movie is that it is high fantasy, but it's also urban fantasy at the same time. And it takes all these kind of like interesting mythological things. In fact, the original title for this movie was called The Black Knight. And it was based off of a idea that the main screenwriter had when he was kind of like touring a museum, and he saw like a suit of armor, and he was like, I wonder what would happen if like, someone who was touring this museum just like I am, but like actually lived in that time period, and this was his suit of armor, and he's looking at it like, from my perspective today and remembering like all the stuff he did in that armor. And that was kind of like the genesis of this movie. And the writer's main name is Gregory Wyden. And he wrote this as like his thesis for UCLA Film School. And he ended up selling this script for like $200,000.
Wow.
And that was like, kind of like his big break, coming right out of UCLA Film School. And he sold it to these producers who went on to produce like, most of the new Highlander things. And they were the ones who kind of like got it off the ground and got it financed and brought in Russell Mulcahy. And it was Mulcahy's experience in the music video world where he was able to bring on like Queen and like a bunch of these like big bands to do the soundtrack. And it was funny because Queen originally, like they were just going to do one song for the soundtrack. And when they saw a rough cut of the movie, they were like, this thing's badass. We want to do more songs for it. And so like they ended up doing like 3 or 4 songs for like
it
the
just
film.
makes me happy.
Yeah. and if you ever watch the music video for I think it's called The Kings of the Universe or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. It's basically like it's Freddie Mercury and Queen, and they're on the rooftop that the final battle takes place on, and Christopher Lambert shows up and just, as Connor McLeod.
Yeah.
And he starts playing guitar.
No, it's one of those like weird like 80s kind of music videos where the band's playing and doing their thing, and people from the movie just kind of randomly show up and walk around on the stage.
That's so cool.
You know, like it's like a Sin Almost Fire kind of video, those kind of things, so
that's awesome. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to say about this movie is like, first of all, I was so excited that I was finally going to get to watch it because I never have time to just like watch something for me, because we're always watching stuff for the show, and then Kadish and I usually try to like watch stuff together. So for me to finally get to watch something that has been on my watch list for so long, I was so excited that we were going to do a whole week of it, and I was anticipating like being really sick of it by the end of the week because that's kind of par for the course when we choose a theme. By the end of the week, I'm just like, I'm fucking over it. I could watch this movie again right now. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
It was great.
So, Alex, I don't know if you knew this, but according to Russell Mulcahy and Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery was drunk the entire time he was on set for this movie.
I love that guy.
Apparently he had, they shot his scenes in Scotland. And he had some type of local hookup who just made him like homemade whiskey. And so like he was just constantly drinking while he was on set, and they actually had to like deal with drunk Sean Connery during all of his filming scenes.
But
awesome.
You know what? That probably is why we are so endeared to Ramirez the way he is.
He's
a
a legend.
He's got that swagger.
Yeah.
I mean, people cosplay as this dude 40 years later to this day. It's great.
I bet you Sean Connery was probably loving that ponytail too.
Oh, I
probably,
said the same thing. I was like, he took that home at the end of the shoot.
100%.
Yeah, and it was funny because we talked about how, like, if you listen to our Sean Connery podcast episode where we talked about The Hunt for October, Sean Connery wanted his character to have a ponytail in that as well, and
that was 87, right? Was that the same year?
No. But it was funny because John McTiernan started a rumor because he didn't want Sean Connery to have like the ponytail, so he started a rumor that said like the ponytail looked like a penis hanging off the back of his head. and when Connery heard that, he was like, "I can't have a ponytail." He like took it off. So a little bit of mind games there, but in this one he went full ponytail.
Oh yeah.
It was glorious.
Yeah,
right.
It's just one of those things that I can't imagine any other actor from that era playing in those roles. Even Christopher Lambert and the Kurgan guy. I mean, that's just who those characters are to me. And I know I'm curious what they're going to do with the reboot, because there is a reboot in the works, a reimagining or whatever of the original Highlander.
You think they can get Kurt Russell this time?
No.
Yeah, he'll play like a Turkish.
He plays Ramirez.
No. So Henry Cavill is attached as Connor McLeod in the reboot.
Oh,
which
cool.
and if they give it a budget and they use him, and it'll be great. I think I'm looking forward to it. This isn't one of those IPs or whatever that I'm not going to get offended if they reimagine and redo this.
Yeah, they basically reimagine each sequel as they go along.
Right.
So.
Yeah. They just went bananas every time they created a sequel.
But Vader, you might be interested to know that. So Russell Mulcahy, he was talking with Sting because he had done like some Sting music videos about starring in the movie, and it was Sting who recommended Clancy Brown because they had worked together on this movie called The Bride, and he was like, this guy's like an amazing actor, you should cast him as the bad guy. And so you can thank Sting for Clancy Brown's performance in this movie.
Cool.
Good job, Sting.
I think there's a lot of lore and a lot of really cool fantasy elements to this movie that if they did remake it nowadays, I think could really be cool. Like there's like Assassin's Creed elements where like this person's immortal and they collect these ancient artifacts throughout history and they have to hide their identity. Yeah, it's really freaking a good concept to work with, a good foundation if you make something really cool out of. Real quick,
the big problem with this movie was that it was a definitive ending to it. Like they filmed it as a standalone. They were like, this is just one movie. This is how it's going to end. Connor McLeod wins the prize and he's the last immortal. And at the end of the movie, he basically becomes immortal and he can have children. He can have a family. He can have the thing that he always wanted, and he can grow gracefully and die. And he has like a mental connection to every person on the planet, and he can bring about world peace and everything's a-okay until the sequel. So,
I always imagined a TV show, and maybe this is kind of, they explored some of this stuff in the TV series that came out of here, but I always kind of figured I would like to see a series of Duncan MacLeod wandering the earth like Cain in Kung Fu over those 400 years between when he was born and between the end. Just kind of exploring the earth and
so Vader,
learning his craft and stuff. And
Vader, Duncan MacLeod is the character for the TV show.
Connor, yeah.
The movies.
Connor Duncan, whatever. MacLeod.
MacLeod clan.
There's one more thing I wanted to say about this before we do final thoughts. So, because I had never seen this before, I didn't really know what it was about. And so I think just from hearing other people talk about it, what I thought that it was it's called Highlander. So I assumed everything would be Scottish and that there's this one Scottish guy who's an immortal and he's like a Viking or he's got superpowers or something. That's all I thought. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh, so, okay, there's that one Scottish guy. He's the Highlander, but it's all called Highlander, but the immortal beings are just called immortals. Like this whole, for decades, I thought that the Highlander was a term for this immortal group of people. And that is completely incorrect.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
He's just him.
So
I was like, this is very misleading.
I know you said this is like right up your alley as far as movies that you like. Give us your favorite moment and what would you give this movie as for a rating?
Oh, favorite moment. I like the backstory stuff with like him and Heather and he's like falling in love and like when Ramirez shows up and like as soon as Sean Connery shows up and he's like, I'm an Egyptian Spaniard, I burst out laughing because I was like, are you fucking kidding me? It was so funny and so very like the seriousness of it was just like, no, I am a fucking Spaniard. And you were like, yes, sir, Mr. Sean Connery, sir. You sure are.
When he's like, what are you doing, bandejo?
Yeah. Oh my God. I think I texted you guys when he said that. I was like, oh my God. He just said bandejo. Amazing.
That's great.
Yeah. So what are we calling this? Is it a campy movie? Is it a sci-fi movie?
Just a cult
classic.
movie.
Okay.
Cult classic.
Okay, cult classic. Gosh. It's gotta be a 4 out of 5 immortals for me for cult classic.
Oh yeah.
Nice. All right, Kadish, you're next, buddy. What are you favorite moments and give this movie a rating?
All right, so I thought that the final showdown between Kurgan and MacLeod, which I always want to pronounce it MacLeod.
Me too.
Because that's how it's spelled.
I watch a lot of Outlander.
Yeah, but I feel like their final battle on the rooftop, and then they fall into like that big auditorium type place. Was really cool. You can see the wires in that scene.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny.
It just adds to it.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny because like all like the energy stuff that they drew on to the film, they tried to draw it in a way to cover the wires. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know if they succeeded in that or not, but it was funny because in the script, whenever the quickening happens, they just write, and then the quickening happened. And Russell Mulcahy, when he was sitting there reading the script, he's like, okay, what does that mean? Like how do we visualize that? And I love how the choices they made were basically, it's so powerful. Everything around them just explodes, whether it's explosive or not. It's just like windows shatter, fireballs show up out of nowhere, like cars just blow up. And that final scene where Christopher Lambert says like the iconic line, there can be only one. And then every window behind him just blows out. I'm
so badass.
Yeah, it really is. And then like the Queen soundtrack drops and you're just like, fuck yeah.
It gives you everything.
So like those were always my favorite moments. I thought that the opening sword fight in the parking garage was really good. Fun fact, that was not in a parking garage. Actually, they shot that in a outdoor fruit market in England because every parking garage that they looked at, the ceilings were too low. So they had to like kind of like make this outdoor market look like a parking garage.
Huh.
There was a lot of kind of like innovative stuff that went into this movie. They shot it fast and dirty, but it looks really good. The grime of New York City in the 80s, like you could really feel like, oh, this is disgusting. And Clancy Brown's performances and Sean Connery being like an Egyptian Spaniard.
You want to see some grime? Wait till you see the next one.
Yeah. And there's just so many different elements in this movie that all come together to work, even though they shouldn't work. And this is just an enjoyable film. This is a fantasy film that creates like a unique kind of mythology to it. And I'm not surprised that this film spawned like a whole very loyal fan base across the world. And I think that the sequels have continually tested that fan base. But the strength of this movie is what keeps the Highlander thing going. And I really enjoy this film.
Cool.
All right, Vader, how about you, buddy?
Man, I can't give you a favorite moment because I just enjoy the whole movie. This is one of those movies that it's like Raiders. If I'm flipping through the channels and Highlander's on, I'm just gonna stop and watch it till it's over. You know, it's just one of my favorite movies ever. There's really not a lot that I dislike about this movie. I think it's starting to show its age quite a bit. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't mind seeing a reboot of this, but it's always going to be a special movie to me. And it's just a fun, awesome movie. I like everything about it. I mean, iconic characters, the good guys, great. You know, Sean Connery, the Kurgan. I mean, it is what it is.
How many stars you got it?
It's a 4-star movie for me. Even just on its own, it's a 4-star. I don't have to put it in any not stupid, but any kind of weird category. It's just a fun movie, and I'm kind of I don't understand why it did so poorly because it's always been a good movie. It's always been kind of fun, but like I said, it's starting to show its age, and that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but
it makes it more special. It makes it more unique that it has the drawn on lightning and stuff at the end and
but like I see what you're saying as far as like it's starting to show its age, but like for me, and I know I'm a person who likes camp, but for me, it being a first watch, I didn't mind that at all. Like I knew it was from the 80s and I expected it to look like that, and I just thought it was just such a fun movie with charm, and I just enjoyed the whole thing, and I didn't mind how it looked. I mean, I saw like the drawn on special effects, and I was just like, "Ha, that's amazing."
I'm with you.
Right on. For me, my favorite scene is definitely the fight between Clancy Brown and Sean Connery. I thought that was probably the best one as far as like cinematics goes. Like they were fighting up the staircase, and then they get up to the top, and there's lightning crashing down, and he chops the freaking head off of Sean Connery. I was like, God. That was amazing. That was a great fight scene. It's my favorite one. The trash talking that they did back and forth, where he cuts his neck open and he's like, "Oh, I think that's an improvement on your voice." Like I freaking, it was all good stuff.
Yeah, and it was interesting because in the final fight, Christopher Lambert or Connor McLeod uses that same move that Sean Connery taught him to actually kill Kurgan. So like he began what Sean Connery started.
I dig it. Yeah, that was definitely my favorite scene. I'm not as in love with this movie as I think you guys are. It's a solid 3-star for me. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's got that cult classic vibe to it. It's got that low budget nostalgia that we all kind of like, Jude especially. So I can appreciate it for what it is, but it's not something like, as opposed to Vader, where like, oh, I see it on TV, I'm going to watch it. I probably won't. I'd have to be in the right mood to sit down and watch this movie.
I'm taking you off my friend list.
One of these days, we have to watch something that you like, Alex. You just the movies that we find charming, you usually hate, and we have to watch together something that you would normally hate and see if it improves your take on it. Because I really think that like when you watch something with company and you're all like talking through it and just like making fun of the movie as you're watching it, it just improves the experience so much.
Oh. For sure, I believe you. I think we do need to do that.
Not this week though.
There's a lot of movies that Jude likes that I can't stand.
Yeah,
Jude goes way far into the whole campy, weird, low budget world that I just don't like. And I never really thought of Highlander as a low budget movie. It's just a product of its time in my head, you know.
I mean, it's not technically a low budget movie. It was in the 80s for, what was it, $16 million, and the 80s was not low budget.
1986, but it's just a cool movie, man. And it's just, there's so much iconic stuff in it that still is cool to me. And
yeah, I mean, it was an independently financed movie. I think a British telecom company put up the money for it. And Warner Brothers was the American distributor, and it was their mishandling of the marketing for the movie, which is why it didn't do very well at the box office, but it did really well overseas. So, you know, and then home video, like this was kind of like at the start of like the home video revolution where movies would find second lives on home video. And some of our favorite movies are
straight
movies
to video
that kind of like were discovered through home video.
This is 100% one of those movies that I wore out the VHS tape of. For sure.
Right on.
So,
all right, guys, that's our discussion for the first Highlander movie. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break, listen to some sponsors. We'll be right back. We'll talk about the sequel, Highlander 2. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, if you would like to support the podcast and get some awesome merch in return, go to saltynerdstore.com. There you can get access to all of our really cool t-shirts that myself and Kadish have designed over the past couple of years. We've got One Star Crap Fest, which is what Kadish is wearing right now. We've got Boob Stalker, one of my favorite t-shirts that Jude is wearing. And, of course, the Salty Justice Warrior that Matt Vader is wearing over there. So go to saltynerdstore.com to get access to those t-shirts and help support the podcast, get some cool stuff in return. Okay, Jude.
Yes, sir.
Highlander 2.
All right, you got it.
Take it away.
1991, Highlander 2 The Quickening, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour 31 minutes. Had a budget of $30 million. What do you think this brought into the box office?
Oh, that had a bigger budget than the first one?
Double.
I'm going to say it made 28 million, maybe 30. Made a budget back.
Vader?
$2 million.
Close. $15 million. It made half of its budget.
Half its budget.
Yeah.
Back. Wow.
Total bomb.
All right, you ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. When Highlander goes sci-fi, Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod is an old man in 2024 living a solitary life under a protective Earth dome he made. Michael Ironside arrives from another planet to kill the Highlander, and that makes Connor young and bangable again. A blonde science lady wants to smash the dome, and Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod smashes her vagina. Sean Connery comes back to life to buy a new suit and then sacrifice himself because there can be only one.
I'm starting to detect a theme here. In your
God.
babe.
He's freaking this was hot garbage.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, look, I love Michael Ironside probably more than any of you guys. I like, he is the freaking man for me. I love all his bad guys in the 80s. I love that he plays Sam Fisher in the video games, Splinter Cell. Michael Ironside is amazing. This movie, he was the only thing I liked about this movie. Even Sean Connery, I know he came back, but his character is like, well, he showed up for like a day and then was like, I'm going to drink some whiskey and get a new suit and then go home.
That
Like,
shopping montage in the
oh
middle.
my God. And he
It
takes
was
his
It was very Pretty Woman.
oh yeah. Yeah. He takes his earring off as payment and the guy's just like, oh, okay, that's $1 million.
I buy my own hotel.
Yeah.
It was so stupid.
This movie is so weird to me because I've never gone from one of my favorite movies of all time to literally one of the biggest pieces of crap movies ever made as a sequel. This movie is such hot garbage. It's an absolute flaming tire fire of
that causes
crap.
the ozone to disappear.
Yeah, I just like, what were they thinking when they put this together? I don't understand it.
It's
I don't
so
understand how it could even.
nonsensical.
Yeah,
And so I love shitty movies, and the whole time I think I was enjoying myself, but I never want to watch it again.
never.
Yeah.
The scene.
I'm sorry, I had forgotten how bad it was. I think I literally mentally blocked it out because I have seen it before, but I was getting confused with the next one that we watched. I was getting confused with 3, and I'd kind of forgotten all of the nonsense from the time travel and the stupidity and the everything about this movie is just so off the wall, bonkers, Mystery Science Theater 3000 nonsense. It's just I don't get it. I absolutely do not get it.
I think your brain did you a favor in making you not remember it because it makes no sense.
The ridiculous like eco-terrorism environmental message behind the whole thing where they're like, we have to protect the ozone layer or it's gonna kill us all. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was totally something that
of
like
the time.
of the time.
Some late 80s SJW wrote this thing.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know,
also, like, he got real old for how many years had passed between the last one and this one.
What was it, 2024?
Yeah, so basically the ozone layer began depleting in 1999, and this movie happens in 2024, so 2 years from or 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And so
over
25
that, like,
years
25-year period
under the dome.
He aged like 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was an old man. He was like dying or something, right? So why did he start aging? Was it because he was the only one left? He won.
Well, according to the movie, he could choose to age and die.
That's the prize.
Or he could go back in time and rule the planet under his nice and judgy and scholarly rule or whatever.
He could be Odin, or he could just become an old man.
So he decided, I'm just going to stay here in gold and die.
I'm gonna make an Earth dome. You guys are gonna love it.
What happened was the girl that he met in the first movie, the cop lady, Brenda. So he fell in love with her, and she died from solar radiation from the depletion of the ozone layer. And before she died,
it's very sad.
Before she died, she asked him to save the world, and so he chose to stay and grow old so that he could save the world as the last wish of his dying wife, as opposed to going back in time or to the planet Zeiss, depending on which version of this you watch, to rule over all the immortals.
Right. Okay, and that was our discussion.
You know what's funny is that the story behind the making of this movie is way more interesting than the movie itself.
I walked through the room a couple of times while Kadish was watching like the backstory on it, and it seemed better than the actual movie.
Yeah,
is there a documentary or something?
Yeah, there are a couple of documentaries actually, but I've been wanting to talk about this movie more than any of the 3 that we watched.
Of course.
Simply because there was so much behind the scenes stuff going on that was so much more interesting than the movie itself that actually explains a lot of the reason why this movie is as bad as it is.
Didn't they have Sean Connery for less time and they paid him more money for this one?
They paid him $3.6 million for 6 days of work.
Okay.
Nice. That's an upgrade. Before we let Kadish dive into the backstory behind this, because I did not know there was a documentary, but I really want to watch it now. There was something that like the scene where they're in the city and they're fighting the 2 like bird dudes with the feathers and the beak goggles things.
Weird.
Porcupine guys.
This is so weird. But the whole time I was watching that, I'm like, did they steal the set of Batman 1989 from Tim Burton? Because it looked exactly like that. It was the same style. It looked like a Tim Burton movie for about 15 minutes. And I was like, what is going on?
No, they actually built that set.
Yeah. They built it from scratch.
Ugh. God, why? All right, Kadish, take it away. What's the fascinating behind the scenes take on this movie?
All right, so do you guys remember when we did our reviews for Deathstalker 1 and 2, and we talked about how Roger Corman chose to shoot those movies in Argentina because he got like a tax credit from the government, and so he built a bunch of sets there, and he used like the Argentinian crews, and he saved like a bunch of money, and he made something like 8 to 12 films in Argentina, and for like hundreds of thousands of dollars each, and they'd bring in like millions of dollars in profit. So when the producers for the Highlander series, their names were Brian Clemens and William Panzer, they basically were getting a lot of interest from foreign distributors who made a lot of money off the first Highlander. And they're like, you got to make a sequel to this. And they're like, well, the first one was kind of like, had a definitive ending. And the distributors are like, just figure it out because there's a lot of money to be made here.
Just do it.
Yeah. So basically these two guys got together and they came up with a concept for the story where basically instead of doing a fantasy film, they were going to do a science fiction film. And they were going to set it in a way so that they could undo the definitive ending of the first movie and, you know, bring back Connor McLeod and bring back Sean Connery because, you know, he's a big overseas draw and things of that nature. And so when they were kind of figuring out how to produce this movie, they found out that if they shot the movie in Argentina, they could get a lot of the same tax breaks that Roger Corman got, and they could basically save about $10 million if they shot it in Argentina. So their money would go much further. And so they made this decision to, you know, film in Argentina, and they brought back Russell Mulcahy to direct this movie. And they hired this guy named Peter Bellwood to write the screenplay based off of the story concept they came up with.
They neglected to call Queen.
They did neglect to call Queen, but they did call Christopher Lambert and had him come back along with Sean Connery and Virginia Madsen and Michael Ironside.
So if there can be only one.
Yeah. So basically, there were a lot of things that happened to make this movie as bad as it was. The first thing was that everyone hated the script. And
that's fair.
And in fact, Michael Ironside, he was doing like a Reddit AMA one time, and someone asked him about this, and he was like, yeah, listen, like, you know, I hated that script. We all did. Me, Sean, Chris, we were all in it for the money on this one. I mean, it read as if it was written by a 13-year-old boy. And he was like, I've never played a barbarian swordsman before, and this was my first big evil mastermind type character. I figured if I was going to do this stupid movie, I might as well have fun and go over the top, go as over the top as I possibly could.
I think you made the right choice.
Yeah. All that eye rolling and foaming at the mouth was me deciding that if I was going to be in a piece of shit like that movie, I was going to be the most memorable fucking thing in it. And I think I succeeded. And it was funny because
well done.
Like when we were watching it, I turned to Jude, I was like, Michael Ironside seems to be the only one who seems to be having fun in this movie.
Full commitment.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. So like they shifted it from fantasy to science fiction. In the original cut of the movie, in order to explain who the immortals are and where they came from, the immortals come from a planet called Zeist. Okay. It's a alien planet, and they're aliens. And when they fail to mount a revolution, all the criminals are sent to Earth in exile, and they're forced to fight one another. And there can be only one who survives. And then they can, once they survive, they can either choose to stay on Earth and age and stuff like that, or they can come back to the planet Zeist, and basically they're pardoned for their crimes.
So it's Running Man.
Yeah,
sort of. But that was the original cut. And this movie went through like 3 or 4 different cuts. And the one we saw was the final one. And basically the producers had such a huge backlash from the Highlander fan base that they made them all aliens, that they retconned it and said, oh, this is way in the past on Earth. And they're sent forward in time. And so like, they're still human. So like they kind of retconned that a little bit. But here's the thing about some of the behind the scenes stuff. So basically, so they chose to shoot this movie in Argentina because the value of the dollar was so strong against the Argentinian currency that their dollar would go much further in Argentina. And because there was a kind of film industry there, they could hire local Argentinians to staff their crew and save money on, you know, paying less for the crew and stuff like that. So basically, they estimated that they could save about $10 million by shooting it in Argentina. And as they started getting into filming, a bunch of different things happened to mess up this plan. So first of all, the Argentinian crew, when they would break for lunch, they would drink, right? And, you know, it's just part of the culture there where they would have like wine or beer at lunch. And so a lot of the crew members got super drunk at lunchtime.
Oh no.
And they didn't feel like working for the rest of the day. And so like they'd be very slow and kind of like unreliable. And so basically they had to try to shoot as much as they could before lunchtime in order to actually, you know, get stuff done for the film.
Somehow that sounds very familiar to how
This sounds like us, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it was a situation where, because of the crew's drunkenness, it put them behind schedule. Okay. In addition to that, a lot of the crew actually started suing the production for violation of Argentinian like work laws. So there were lawsuits levied against the production as they were filming. And because a lot of the heads of the departments in Argentina weren't very experienced, the production actually had to fly out people from the UK and the US to take over, which increased the cost.
Oh my gosh.
But the biggest thing that happened is that during this time, Argentina was experiencing hyperinflation because they had devalued their currency so much. So on a day-to-day basis, the value of the Argentinian currency would drop, and that inflated the cost of everything to do in the production. So something that might have cost like $100 at the beginning of production was now costing $5,000.
Kind of feels like my my cryptocurrency investments.
Yeah, but so basically the hyperinflation that was going on was increasing the price of everything by 5,000%.
Wow.
And so all the money that they converted into Argentinian currency at the beginning of the production was getting worth less and less. So they were having to invest more money in order to just keep the production going. And that caused everything to be way more expensive. And so this movie, which was originally budgeted, I think, for like $12 to $15 million, ended up costing $30 million. Like they went double their budget. And so what happened is that every movie, when it's being before it gets shot, it gets bonded and insured by an insurance company. And this is basically to cover, like, in case the movie, like something catastrophic happens, like a main actor dies or whatever, and the movie's unable to be finished, the people investing in the movie can be recouped for their investment. But in a situation like this, where it's going over budget and they've got most of the movie shot, what happened is that the insurance company stepped in and took over the movie. They basically sidelined the director, they sidelined the producers, they kicked everyone out of the editing room. They took all the footage that was shot, and they brought in their own editors and said, make something of this so we can get back some money.
Wow.
And so the original cut of this movie was completely nonsensical. Like the dome, the
Earth Dome?
The Earth Dome was originally red in color, even though they shot everything in blue, because under the dome everything's supposed to be night. So it was always supposed to be a blue dome that the special effects guys were planning on. But it was cheaper to do a red dome, I guess, in the final edit. So you have the sky red and then everything else is blue underneath it. The final battle between Michael Ironside and Connor McLeod was intercut with an earlier battle that they had cut out. Mm-hmm. And so the backgrounds in the final battle kept changing very obviously. And there's just basically like they were missing like entire scenes that kind of set up and explain stuff that happened later on in the movie. So there was just a ton of stuff that the original US release version of this movie was missing that basically made it incomprehensible. And in fact, I think Roger Ebert said this was the worst movie of 1991.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
And so when they went to their foreign distributor, who were the people who really wanted a sequel to the Highlander to begin with, and they saw the US cut, they were like, this is awful. Can you guys come in and fix this? And they were like, yes, thank you, God. And so Russell Mulcahy came in and did what was called the director's cut, or the renegade cut. And so they were able to fix it for international audiences. So America got the really crappy version. And then the UK and the rest of the world got a slightly less crappy version.
Which one did we watch?
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So there are 4 versions of this movie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm going to laugh if we all watch a different version.
That'd be amazing.
We probably did.
So basically, for the home video release, they decided to go back and actually kind of like put some effort into fixing the movie. And they did this cut where they redid some of the special effects because it was cheaper to do these special effects at this time. But they actually went back 4 years later and reshot the scene where basically Connor McLeod and Michael Ironside have a fight on the moving car where Virginia Madsen's like driving it. And it was kind of funny because when we were watching it, it has this really generic kind of like guitar riff score
Yes, it
going
does.
on. And I pointed out to you, I was like, why does that sound like a stock music score? And it was because 4 years later, they were able to get these 3 actors back. They were able to shoot this scene, which they were not able to shoot during the original production, and edit it into the movie. And they didn't have the money to get it scored. So they just got a stock music guitar riff score that they put over the scene.
You're telling me that Michael Ironside got a phone call 4 years after filming this movie to go back and do reshoots for this movie that he called a piece of shit?
Yeah.
What a pro.
That's amazing. And he did it. And he put on the stupid wig and the stupid outfit and he went and did it.
Well, you want to hear a funny story about Michael Ironside on this movie? Is that so originally he had a stunt double who was supposed to do like all like the sword fighting and all this stuff for him. And the stunt double was a degenerate cocaine addict who basically he wasn't reliable. He wouldn't show up to set. And when he was on set, he was coked out of his mind. And this
is just getting better.
And the stunt double kept getting injured because he was just so coked out of his mind that he wasn't taking the proper precautions. So the production fired him, but they didn't have enough money in the budget to hire a new guy. And so Michael Ironside ended up doing all of his own stunts because of, budget constrictions and stuff like that. And what actually happened was Ironside and Christopher Lambert got injured constantly in their fights with one another because, they were using like these heavy metal swords. And Christopher Lambert is basically blind. Like he has extreme like close sightedness, or I don't know what you call it. Nearsightedness. And so like he can't see anything unless he's wearing like prescription glasses. And it's so bad that he can't wear contacts to fix it. So whenever you see him without glasses on, he's basically like, just kind of winging it. And so he has these sword fights where he basically accidentally chipped one of Michael Ironside's teeth in the fight.
Oh my gosh.
And Michael Ironside almost cut off one of Christopher Lambert's fingers by accident.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so like it was very dangerous to not have stunt doubles doing the fighting.
Or like foam swords.
Yeah. So like that was Michael Ironside's experience on this movie. Was he was just like constantly in danger, basically.
I need the link to this documentary because it sounds
I
fascinating.
think it's on. Oh, it was in YouTube, huh?
Yeah, I found it on YouTube. The documentary and this Michael Ironside stuff. This just came from my own research. It wasn't really talked about in the documentary, but it's called Highlander II: A Love Affair with Argentina or something, or seduced by Argentina.
That's funny.
That's
awesome.
And they talk about the various aspects of this. So basically, they reshot this action scene, they put it into the movie, and then the fourth version of this movie had everything completely remastered. So they put in like a couple of deleted scenes. They redid like the look and feel of the film so that the dome is blue. Everything like looks like it belongs with one another. Yeah, and the initial kind of ending to like the third cut was one where Christopher Lambert, after he kills Michael Ironside's character, takes Virginia Madsen and they like beam to the alien planet of Zeist and live as happily ever after as husband and wife among the aliens.
Oh my god!
And they changed that to like they just kind of like kiss and
I want to see that movie.
Yeah. So I mean, the story behind Highlander 2 is just one of like complete chaos, where the two producers basically screwed with the mythology. Nobody wanted to do this movie, but they were all like kind of contractually obligated to do so, and so like they were just in it for the money. Sean Connery showed up for like 6 days, shot his stuff, left, got paid $3 million for it.
To put a suit on.
And it was funny because from what I understand, Christopher Lambert, when he was in Argentina, a lot of the Argentinian nightclubs were paying him to come to their establishments because it was like, oh, we got a big Hollywood movie star, come to our club. And so he was constantly like hungover because he was out all night drinking at these nightclubs that he was being paid to kind of promote. And then the next day he'd show up on set. And one of the reasons why his performance is so bad in this is just because like he was tired and he was hungover in almost every scene he was in.
And you can tell.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
You can. And it was interesting because this movie was directed by the guy who directed the first movie, Michael McKay. And you can tell like he had like a kind of refined his visual style, but he had such a terrible experience working on this movie that he wanted nothing to do with Highlander going forward after this.
For me, watching this movie immediately after watching my favorite movie from the original, it was such a drastic change in the story and in the style and in everything about this movie was not in the first movie. And it was just like, it had nothing, it wasn't related at all, except for some of the characters kind of looked the same. It was awful. It was just absolutely atrocious. They went to this weird science fiction, time travel, goofy
environmental message.
Yeah, it was just...
That kills the movie. That kills the movie for me.
It was absolutely atrocious. And it was just... I can't even really sit here and make fun of it because it's just so bad. It's just it's not fun. It's not campy. It's not bad fun. It's just a bad movie. And it's just it kind of made me sad after I finished it because it did because the original was such, it deserved a better sequel. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The fans deserve something more respectful to whatever lore it had at the time, because there was a fan base for this, and it was, and could you imagine if this was a new thing, and this sequel had come out after a movie that came out just a couple of years ago, and this came out now with the way we talk about movies and judge movies and the social media and stuff? It would be an absolute firestorm online.
You mean like how people keep talking about the Starbucks coffee cup in season 8?
Yeah. Season 8. I think I was trying to think of an equivalent for today, and I'm like, well, it can't be Star Wars because not everybody loved The Force Awakens. So The Last Jedi was like, but season 8 is like the perfect example, because you have people who were super fans, even though you can argue that season 6 and 7 kind of dropped in quality a little bit. Everybody was still on board. Yeah. But when season 8 came out, it was unanimously like, what the fuck? And that's kind of what this sequel was. You're watching, you're like, you know what? I know it's cheesy, but I love it. It's a ton of fun. I love the lore. It's all cool. And then this movie comes out, and you're like,
what is this?
What is this?
What is this? This is...
It's very confusing.
Yeah, it took a big steaming dump on the mythology that the first one set up. But it also... So two interesting things about this. So first of all, other than James Bond, the Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez character is the only one that Sean Connery has ever reprised as a role. So I this movie is notable for that.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and another thing is that the only good thing to come out of this is the fact that in order to retain the rights to the Highlander franchise, the producers had to start the TV series the year after this came out in order to basically put something into production that they could actually, retain the rights to. So this movie led to the creation of the Highlander TV show, which ran for like 7 seasons.
So that was popular though, right?
The TV show was hugely popular. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but Highlander is like it's got like a huge hardcore fan base. It has since like the first movie came out, and the TV show really solidified it. Like, they have conventions and all types of like hardcore fan base.
I would definitely go to a Highlander convention.
What's really goofy to me is I'm such a huge fan of the first movie, but I couldn't tell you the first thing about the series. I don't know what I was doing in my life when this series came out. I think it was that kind of during my wandering years. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't watching a lot of movies and stuff back then. But
Kadish, do you know if the series was, like, in general, like, well received? Is it a good show?
So it was one of those shows where it was basically like first run syndication, I want to say. And it was a big hit internationally, like not so much here in the States, but internationally, like people were obsessing over the show. I mean, it went for 7 seasons. So it was hugely, shows that are crappy don't go for 7 seasons, but the quality of what people expect overseas isn't quite as high as what we here in America are used to. But from what I understand, the series kind of focused on Connor MacLeod's cousin, Duncan MacLeod. And so it was kind of like a different character, and they really expanded on the lore and the mythology, and they brought in like all types of interesting new villains and things of that nature. So it was it was received much better, and it was kind of the thing that saved the franchise after the year after Highlander 2 came out, because Highlander 2 was just really, really bad. In fact, in the documentary, they were talking to one of like the super fans of Highlander, who I think started like the first like Highlander fan club or something like that. And she said, like, they asked her, like, what did you think about Highlander 2? And she was like, well, it looks really pretty. And that was the only thing they had to say about the movie.
Right.
Because fans everywhere were just disgusted by this film. Like they hated every choice that was made on it.
There's really nothing to like in this movie.
I disagree.
Just Michael Ironside. I love Michael Ironside.
I don't even like him, because I feel like he's just trying to be.
How do you not like that scene where he uses his immortal power to run a subway car at 600 miles an hour?
Yeah,
And
I was just going to bring that
so
up.
fast that everyone on board dies from the speed. and then it breaks through a solid concrete wall, and it's just fine. It's fine.
Remember the scene where it looked like something out of Total Recall, where the guy's head was exploding because he was going so fast?
Awful.
Oh my God, dude. Genius. No, this movie was hot garbage. It was terrible. The only thing I like about it was Michael Ironside, and that's only because I am a Michael Ironside shill. So anything he's in, I'm in for. Even Terminator Salvation, when he showed up for like 30 seconds, I was like, that movie's great.
I know that in the original script for this movie, basically the Michael Ironside character, whose name also begins with a K, it's Katana. Mm-hmm. What does Katana stand for?
Japanese sword.
Yeah. So basically, General Katana, he sent Kurgan. Sorry, he sent Kurgan back in time to kill Connor MacLeod, because Connor MacLeod was the guy who led the insurrection on the planet Zeist against General Katana.
This movie is Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why in the first movie, even though Connor's not an immortal yet, Kurgan shows up at the battle looking for him specifically, because he was sent there specifically to kill Connor MacLeod by General Katana. But that did not make it into the finished movies at all. In fact, I think they went to Clancy Brown. They were like, you want to come back for this movie? And Clancy Brown was like, no.
No.
My character's dead.
You're not going to soil my character with this.
Yeah,
hot
I
garbage.
think he made the right choice.
Yeah, I think so too.
So-
All right, so let's do for this one, I want to do something a little bit different. What was the moment that broke you for this movie, Vader, and then give it a rating? I can already assume what the rating's going to be, but go ahead.
I mean, this is absolutely a 1-star crap fest movie for me. It's terrible. It's an absolute abortion of a movie. It's awful. It's it should never have been made. It's just trash. They lost me really from the get-go. And I think when the porcupine dudes showed up, and then I was completely checked out. Running around on their stupid hoverboards and their stupid cackling laugh, and it was a hard watch. I had to watch it over two sittings, because I was kind of offended, and I was glad that my brain had mentally blocked out this thing from when I watched it 30 years ago or whatever. So yeah,
1-star crap fest.
1-star crap fest. Hard pass. I'm never gonna watch it again ever.
Okay. All right. Jude, how about you?
I think the way that they brought Sean Connery back, I was like, wait, what? So that kind of broke me. However, the shopping montage kept me in it. And then my favorite scene, I am going to tell you my favorite scene in this, because I think it needs its own spotlight, is the scene when Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod, I don't know if you've heard of him. He gets young and bangable again, and all of a sudden he just starts banging Virginia Madsen up against a wall in an alley. I was like, what? Okay.
In a dirty, rainy, gutter-filled New York City alley.
Who hasn't? But yeah.
Well, what's funny is in every movie, Connor MacLeod, he has this thing where he's like, I'm Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod.
It immediately gets laid.
I've been alive for 400 years. I'm immortal and I cannot die. And the girls just spread their legs for him.
What was
It's
was
like
it
like
this?
instant sex talk.
Yeah.
What was it? This movie where he was like, "Watch, I'll prove to you that I'm more mortal," and like he forces her to
Brenda.
stab him.
That's the first
Is that
movie.
Yeah.
That's the first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
Brenda.
jeez, that was such a weird sex scene. I'm sorry, I'm going back to the first movie, but that was such a weird. Like she literally stabs him and then gets turned on, and I was like, Jude's gonna be into this.
We should have a whole segment about like the weird like sexual chemistry throughout all three movies, because it's always a blonde lady and it's super bizarre each time. Like in the first movie, she stabs him and then they have sex. In the second movie, he's an old man and then he becomes young and he walks out and he's like, I'm Connor McLeod of Clan McLeod. And she's like, oh, bang me. And he's like, will this wall do? And she's like, fuck yeah.
It's so weird.
Will this wall do?
Oh my God, did you just snort?
I did.
Yes.
Will this wall do? Sure. That's the next T-shirt right there. Will this wall do?
That's it. That's it.
And the graphic is just two legs in the air
Yeah.
with a brick wall.
No, it's Connor McLeod with like a coffee mug. It's like, yeah.
Will this wall do? My God. Okay.
I've got
Matthew Kadish.
And then in the next one too, there's a weird sex scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think every Highlander has just a weird
You
sex
have
scene
to
in it.
have it.
Yeah.
How many stars did you give this one, Jude?
Oh, gosh, I didn't hate watching it, although I never want to see it again. I feel like I have completed my journey with it, so it's not a 1-star crap fest for me. For me, a 1-star crap fest has to be something that I am angry while I'm watching it, and I didn't get that with this. I was having a good time while I watched it. Probably the bottle of wine that I had while I was watching it helped.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend that. So for me, it's probably a 2-star. Two alley sex scenes out of 5 alley sex scenes.
I like how you put that this movie didn't make you angry. I never really thought about it before, but this movie did make me angry.
Yeah, I know
when
it did for
watched
you. Yeah.
It was like, oh, I get it. I get it.
All right, Matthew Kadish, is there a moment that broke you for this movie, and how many stars do you give it?
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid and I saw commercials for this movie when it was coming out in theaters, and I just thought it looked like the dumbest piece of crap I'd ever seen, even at that young age. And so, like, this was a first watch for me. Like, I'd never seen this movie before.
What?
And
Yeah, same here.
And when I was watching it, like, I knew from like the opening scene what I was getting into.
Oh, yeah.
And so nothing in this movie kind of broke me in the sense that I was surprised at how bad it was. But I'd say like the scene where I just completely checked out, because up until that point I was like, why did Katana send those guys into the future if McLeod was going to die of old age anyway? You know, like why did he need to do all this stuff? And a lot of these story problems come down to Brian Clemens and William Panzer, the two producers, because it's just obvious that they're idiots and they shouldn't be making stories.
Argentina has great wine, man.
Yeah. But the point where I completely said like, okay, I get this movie, I'm not going to overthink it anymore, is when General Katana crashes into that subway train and he takes it over and everyone on it dies because they're going way too fast. I mean, I've seen that happen 100 times. Yeah. That's legit. I mean, they're literally going like 800 miles an hour. I'm like, how is that even possible? Like,
it's not.
Like you'd run out of track in an instant.
Yeah.
So like it was just so long and overblown and stupid. And I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
I know what this movie is.
It wore you down.
Yeah, it did. And so like the rest of the movie, I was just kind of like just going along with it. And it's enjoyable in the sense of like the train wreck that it is. And then once I learned about all the behind the scenes stuff that was happening and like it's the worst movie that was ever made that got the most care after it was released, because like they went through and redid this movie like 4 different times.
That's interesting.
To make a semi-passable bad version of it. And I've never seen that happen before. Like typically like, you get something like the Snyder Cut where like the original version was kind of disappointing. And then like you come in and you add some extra scenes and boom, that's it. This movie went through 4 iterations.
So what did we watch?
Over the course of like 15 years. We watched the final version.
Okay.
And so like we got to see the best version of this
good
movie.
for us.
Yeah.
and it was still horrible.
Yeah,
How many
it
stars?
was still bad. I would give this a 1-star crap fest.
Are you
Definitely.
wearing the?
Yeah, the
My
one,
man.
Yep.
1-star
One-star
crap fest,
crap fest.
because this is, it destroys, it pulls The Last Jedi, completely destroys everything that came before it. It negates a lot of like the stuff. In fact, this movie's so bad that every other movie that came after it completely ignores it.
Yeah.
Like they just said this movie did not exist.
Yeah, I'd never seen a movie coming into the third one that completely retconned and forgot that there was already a second movie made.
Yeah, and
It's crazy.
We're going to talk about that in the third one, but it's funny because the Highlander series I think is unique in the sense that every single movie in the Highlander series completely ignores the continuity from all the movies that came before it. And we're talking. So like Jude and I started watching movie number 4, which was called Highlander Endgame. And that completely ignores everything, all the 3 movies that came before it. And then the 5th movie, which is Highlander The Source, completely ignores everything that came before that. So, I mean, like I've never seen a movie series do that before.
It's
I gotta
like
watch
each
these
movie
movies.
is a reboot of the entire franchise.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, 1-star crap fest for me, but despite it being a bad movie, I find it a fascinating movie to research and talk about.
I need to go watch these documentaries for sure.
Yeah, me too. For me, this is I struggle to give this a 1-star crap fest. It would almost be an unwatchable movie if it wasn't for my undying love for Michael Ironside. Like if he wasn't in this movie, I would say never ever watch this movie ever again. But Michael Ironside's over the top, evil villain craziness is the only thing I enjoy out of this movie. The moment that lost me, I think I'm with Vader, is when the stupid bird people on their dumb hovercrafts came down. I was like, oh my god. And it looked like a Tim Burton movie for about 20 minutes. I was like, I'm over it. I hate Tim Burton with a freaking passion. I hate all his movies mostly. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. And then it just continued to get worse. When they brought Sean Connery back just so he could like stop a fan, that was his big moment, was he stopped a fan from turning. I was like, oh my god, that was horrendous. You don't use Sean Connery like that.
that was on his 7th day, and they go, hey guys, we need to figure out how to get Connery out of here really quick.
What was his stupid fortune cookie that he said? Like, some people find a drop of life, but if you use it all at once, you can do fantastic things. I'm like, oh my god, shut up. It was so bad. And then last thing that really took me out of it and like just completely checked out was the guy who plays Dr. Cox from Scrubs, very famous actor. He's one of the Bobs.
John C. McGinley.
Yeah. I love him too. He was really cool in this movie, but there was a scene where he dies where Michael Ironside pushes him out of a window, and it's very obviously just like a mannequin with clothes on it, and it just falls out. I was like, oh my god, they spent $2 on that, didn't they? So this movie
I think they spent 10 million Argentinian dollars. You know what was funny?
So $2.
What was funny is they were shooting at a studio in Argentina where they were like building a bunch of sets and stuff like that. And the original kind of deal with the Argentinian government was like, okay, you can rent this studio out for the length of your production for $300,000. And so they did that. But then when they started filming there, the Argentinian government, which was totally corrupt at the time, came in and said like, oh no, you can't shoot here anymore unless you pay us $10 million. And so in order to just keep the production going, they had to pay like $10 million. And this was something that I kind of experienced when I was making my movie, where we were shooting in a restaurant and we agreed to, buy the crew lunch there in exchange for letting us shoot at the restaurant. And then after we bought lunch, the owner was like, you guys need to get out or I'm calling the cops. And so we only had 15 minutes to shoot all the stuff that we needed to do.
Funny.
And it was kind of like the same thing. And the Argentinian government, in addition to the hyperinflation, was just corrupt to the core. And they just kept doing all this shady stuff to this production because it was American money and they had millions of dollars to spend. So like they just bilked them for everything they were worth. It was really a shame.
Yeah, I would barely struggle to give this a 1-star crap fest, but that's about where it lands. All right, guys, that's it. That's our discussion.
Alex.
What?
You sound like a guy who's never been in an 800 mile an hour
Subway
crash or like had sex in an alley after somebody's magically coming back to youngerness.
Youngerness?
Youth juice.
Will this do? Yeah.
I make up words because words don't matter.
It's funny, like the entire Highlander fan base after seeing this movie, they changed there can be only one to there should be only one.
There should be
That's very accurate.
I can see that. We need to tap into that Highlander fan base. Hey, if you guys are
we
a
will.
super fan of Highlander, comment below and let us know. That's our discussion for Highlander 2. What is it called? The Quickening?
The Quickening.
I didn't know there was a subtitle to it, but Highlander 2, guys, that's our discussion. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned. Right after this break, we're going to talk about the last Highlander 3 in this trilogy.
Ish.
Awesome.
Trilogish.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, if you'd like to support the podcast and jump in and chat with us nerds, go to saltynerddiscord.com. There you can find our Discord server. We have all kinds of fun in there. We have different chats for different TV shows. We've got a spoiler section if you want to talk about movies that you've seen. We've got a live editing sequence where I'll sit down and show you guys how we edit the podcast.
That's riveting stuff there.
Our people enjoy that. So go to saltynerddiscord.com. Come chat with us, and we'll see you guys there. All right, Jude. Highlander 3. Let's get into it. What is this movie all about?
1993 Highlander 3, The Final Dimension / The Sorcerer. It has a couple different titles.
Rated the retcon.
Yeah. Rated PG-13 with a runtime of 1 hour 39 minutes. So this had a budget of $26 million. What do you think this made at the box office?
I'm going to go with the theme that we've been following. It made less. It's going to make $20 million.
Okay, Vader.
$12 million.
It made $10 million more than its budget. So it made $36 million. So
how did this one of all of these movies succeed?
Well, Mario Van Peebles.
No, I'll tell you, it was because of the TV series.
That makes sense.
See, what happened is the TV series was popular enough where Miramax got the rights to distribute these movies, and they marketed it based off the strength of the show's popularity.
See, that's how you market.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, you ready?
Take it away, Jude.
You ready for the final synopsis? The third installment of the Highlander trilogy pretends the last movie never happened. Mario Van Peebles has been in a magic slumber for 400 years, waiting to take on Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod. And he's not just an immortal. He's a magic immortal. A blonde Japanese lady finds ancient Japanese stuff from when Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod used to train with an immortal sorcerer until Kane killed him and absorbed his powers. Using the power of illusion, Kane tricks Connor MacLeod of Clan MacLeod and lures him to the Nightmare on Elm Street boiler room where the two swordsmen fight to the death because, let's say it together, men, there can be only one.
Unless they want to make a new movie or TV show.
Yeah. Remember, there could be only one, except for all the other ones. Classic.
Yeah.
But they might send from the past anytime, they need a sequel to the show, right?
Yeah, I feel like in each movie there's more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is.
There's like 3 in the first one, and then there's like 6 in the next one, and then there's like 27 in the next one.
There's like a whole clan of them in this movie.
Yeah, we tried to. We've said like we started watching the 4th one, and there's like 1,000 in the next one.
Yeah, the TV series basically put in way more immortals than were in the first movie. And like I said before, that this franchise is unique in the sense that every movie in the franchise completely ignores the movies that came before it in the franchise.
Yeah.
Like even going to movies 4 and 5, they just completely ignore everything that came before them, and it's very strange.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, technically, this is not called Highlander 3.
Yeah,
No.
technically.
Yeah, so I think it's just the first movie. Again, because there can be only one.
Well, this movie had like a couple different titles. So originally it was Highlander 3, then it was Highlander The Final Dimension, and then it was Highlander the Sorcerer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fans wanted to call it Highlander the Apology because it was meant to kind of like fix the issues that the second movie created. So
It tried. I think it was a fair shot.
it's basically a remake of the first movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No good.
Yeah, I mean, they replaced Sean Connery with like the Asian sword maker.
They replaced him with Mako from Conan the Barbarian, the wizard.
Yeah.
I was like, man, he's just like the same character from Conan. It's kind of cool.
Mhm.
It's just now he's in his cave in Japan now. So yeah.
I think it took me longer to watch this movie than it did to watch the second movie. For some reason, I was
Really?
able to, I was able to watch the second movie and just kind of roll my eyes through it. But by the time we got to this one, I was starting to get kind of irritated
You
and
were so
salty
beaten
about this.
down.
I was like, Jesus, how bad can you guys be? So like by this movie, I was completely checked out. I had no, I don't know, no grace, not grace. I don't know. I had nothing to give, like no chances left to give for this franchise.
No fucks left to give.
No fucks left to give.
Mhm.
I was like, this movie is freaking garbage. I checked out almost immediately as soon as they introduced the new bad guy, which I immediately was just kind of like roll my eyes. He was just so cringy and dumb.
Yeah.
And his name was Khan.
God, I was just like,
Or Kane.
oh my God,
Kane.
or Kane,
Yeah.
whatever it was, doesn't matter.
Nice try, Katie.
I was done. I was done with this franchise by at this point. Like the first one was fun, the second one was horrible. This one I don't even want to acknowledge.
I wonder
So-
if Mario Van Peebles actually had fun playing this character. I kind of think he did, but still, it doesn't mean it was a good character. This movie, I'm with Salty. By the time I got to this movie, I was kind of checked out at this point, and I knew this. I had seen this movie a long time ago, and it was just another one of those movies that I just kind of put in the round file and decided I probably was never going to watch again unless I had to.
I wish
And we had to this week, but man, it's dumb. It's just a dumb movie.
I wish that instead of watching these 3 Highlander movies, that we had just watched like 3 immortal like fighter or barbarian movies. Like I think that would have been a funner week than this, because like by the third one, I was just kind of like, did I like the first one now? I can't remember.
Right.
And it was funny because we didn't know that the movies kind of ignored the continuity of the previous ones, and so we
kept trying to figure it out.
Yeah, because this one came out in 1994, which is when in the second movie the Earth's ozone started to disappear and people started dying.
So we were like looking for the ozone part of the movie, and we were like, wait, where's Brenda dying?
Oh, yeah, no, they completely
Uh-huh.
abandoned that second movie.
Yeah.
It's great, and they should have. But
and it was funny because in the second movie, Brenda died from solar radiation poisoning, and basically she died. She had got cancer from it, and she died in in this like weird hospital. And in this movie, they were like, oh no, she died in a car crash.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wait, what?
And now he's got a son in this one that we've
an
never
adopted son.
Yeah, we've never seen before. And then in the next one, he doesn't have a son.
Yeah, and in the first movie, he won the prize and he could feel his connection to everyone on the planet Earth. But in this movie, it turns out that he didn't kill all the immortals. There were still 3 left, including Mario Van Peebles, who were just like chilling out in a cave for like 400
magic
years.
slumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, it's like, well, wait, if he didn't actually win the prize, then how could he have experienced that at the end of the first movie?
right.
So like there was just like a ton of stuff in this film that like, if you didn't know that they were completely ignoring all the movies that came before it, you were just like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was frustratingly bad in all aspects.
It was frustratingly frustrating.
Yeah, I did not give a crap about the villain. I didn't think
Same.
he was all that good. He was kind of like generic. Oh, I'm gonna have a gravelly voice and be like super evil for whatever reason. The fight scenes weren't really that fun. The one point that really kind of broke me, and I think this will be the moment where it's like it's probably later on in the movie too, but I just completely checked out, was when he kidnapped McLeod's son from the airport and then like took him on like a terror ride down the runway, and he illusioned like a 777 freaking jumbo jet out of thin air. I was just like, this is so stupid. It was so slapsticky.
And it was a complete ripoff of what Clancy Brown did to Brenda in the first movie.
Yeah.
Well, what I want to know is how they can break out of the cave that's been buried underground for however many years, and they immediately know how to speak English. They can communicate with everybody. Mario Van Peebles, knows how to drive a car, I guess. Because how did that happen? Just stupid. Like when the one henchman goes to New York City from Japan, he's still wearing the same clothes. He's speaking English perfectly, walking through the hospital to people. It's just stuff like that just annoys the crap out of me.
When that henchman showed up in New York, I turned to Judah. I was like, wait, how did that guy go from Japan to New York? Like, how did he get there?
Yeah, the travel was was also very season 8 Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
With like this going to Scotland, and then she follows him to Scotland, and then they're back in New York. It just happened like that. Like you'd think a raven flew him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just this movie is kind of insulting, to be honest with you. They expect us as viewers to just believe and forget so much about what we liked about the first movie. And even if this is supposed to be the actual sequel to the first movie, it's still just a disrespectful pile of garbage. It's just the way these writers can just throw away and pick and choose things what they want to touch on and mess with things. It's crazy to me. I don't understand how something like this would even get made and the directions they took these stories. It's not good. It's awful.
Like the second movie, we all agreed was like a 1-star crap. It's really, really bad movie. But for me personally, the only redeeming quality was that I love Michael Ironside as a bad guy.
Yeah.
This movie didn't even have that.
No, this was the least enjoyable bad guy.
Yeah, like I've never liked Mario Van Peebles, but I guess Christopher Lambert worked with him on a movie called Gunman. They got along really well, and so
I think he was big in the 90s too.
When they brought him back for this movie, he was like, "Hey, you should cast Mario Van Peebles as the bad guy because he's my buddy." And like I've never enjoyed Mario Van Peebles in anything I've seen him in.
What does he even do now?
He looks like a guy that would have played like a disposable bad guy in like a Predator movie.
I actually think he got into directing because his dad was like a famous like black filmmaker, and that was the whole reason why he was able to kind of break into the business to begin with, because I don't think he's very talented. But he was basically just doing a Clancy Brown impression this entire movie.
Yeah.
IMDb says that he's a highly regarded director.
Yeah, I think he transitioned into behind the camera stuff because his acting career wasn't really doing very well for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's busy. He does a lot of stuff.
That's good. Good for him.
But Russell Mulcahy didn't want to come back for this one, so they brought in another kind of like music video director to do it, and his name was Andrew Morahan, and this guy hasn't really done anything of note. But the thing that killed me in this movie, like Alex, you talked about moments that broke us. So in the climactic final fight between Kane and Connor McLeod
Of Clan
McLeod, it's not set to an operatic score. It's set to a generic version of Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood. And it is the most out of place music to be playing during a climactic sword fight that I've ever seen.
I was listening. I'm like, I know that song. What is that song? It's like a generic, shitty version of a more famous song. Thank you. It's Motley Crue.
Yeah, it's Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood, and it feels like
it's like the ringtone of Dr. Feelgood.
It feels like you know those pre-programmed songs in the Casio keyboard where you hit a button and it's like like it felt like that because it didn't have any of like you know the lyrics to it or anything like that, but it was the melody, and you're just sitting there like, why are they playing this song of all the songs over this fight scene?
The one you call Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah, it's like this really up tempo kind of like song, and it doesn't feel like it belongs there at all. Like this whole movie suffers from that. It's kind of like you know, Mako, the sorcerer at the beginning, wanted Connor McLeod to kill him so he could inherit his illusion powers. And then when Kane comes and gains his illusion powers, he uses them against Connor McLeod throughout the whole movie. And when Connor McLeod finally kills him, it's assumed that he now has the power of illusion because you're supposed to kind of absorb all the knowledge and powers of all the people previously. But then in the fourth movie, it's like
didn't happen.
He doesn't have any of his illusion power. Like he
doesn't have his son, any of his wives. I think Heather is consistent through the movies, but that's it. No other woman in any of the movies is continuous.
Maybe
the child, the assistant comes back in the fourth movie,
one. But she's missing
from the first one.
Yeah. So she was the little girl that he saved from the Nazis in the first movie, but then like she's gone for movies two and three.
Yeah.
She comes back for the fourth one only to get killed off immediately.
Yeah.
But Deborah Unger is the love interest in this one. And it's kind of like James Bond in the sense every movie he gets like a new blonde love interest. And again, once she finds out
he says,
he's immortal.
My name is Conan McLeod of Clan McLeod. Also, don't you think he sounds exactly like Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yeah, he's got that Jean-Claude Van Damme cadence. But the minute he says his line, I can't die, she's like, fuck me.
Hard cut to them naked in bed.
Yeah.
I think this one, honestly,
Dr. Feelgood playing.
I think this might have the best sex scene, or at least the most one that's the most revealing. She was like sprawling out with her boobs all out in the air.
I told you that it looked like a love scene directed by Tommy Wiseau.
It really did. It really did.
With like the candles and like the cloth in front. And Deborah Unger refused to use a body double, so that's really her in the scene.
Nice. She looks good.
Doing everything. But yeah, like it felt like
doing everything.
It was a very 90s sex scene.
Yeah.
I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I'll give it a half star for that. For sure.
And they completely Han Solo'd Connor McLeod because he's just the worst father ever.
Yeah.
Like he just didn't call his son, just like,
His son is it's so sad because his son leaves him a voicemail and he's like, hey, it's me, John.
Your son.
You said you were going to call me.
Remember you adopted me?
Yeah, he's like the worst father ever.
Yeah, it's so sad.
And like when he finds out that that Kane had deceived Connor into coming into New York, or not Connor, his son,
John.
Come to New York, John
McLeod of Clan McLeod.
Instead of calling someone and being like, hey, can you get my son at the airport? I'm going to try to make it there as soon as possible. Or sending his friend to go after him. He's just like, okay, I'm just going to wait until I show up at the airport and hopefully I can get to my son in time.
Yeah.
And then there was that weird scene where, he goes to New York for the first time and he's mugged in an alley and left for dead. And he goes to the hospital and the doctors go to treat him. They're like, oh, this guy's fine. And he starts like acting like a crazy person. He's like, I got to get out of here. And then they put him in a mental ward. And it's like, he's died like so many times. Like you think he'd wake up and just be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't hurt as bad as you thought I was.
I'm just going to steal a doctor jacket and just mosey on down in the elevator.
I was picking up some 12 Monkeys vibes. Right
Same. Yeah.
Except 12 Monkeys is actually good.
Yeah, except for that.
Yeah, and the funny thing, like, there's a fight scene in this movie, which is the most ridiculous fight scene I think I've ever seen in a film.
Which one are you referring to?
So, in the middle of the movie, they go to the Japanese Cultural Center, where Connor McLeod is basically like practicing his sword fighting.
Are you sure that's not a gymnastics center?
You'd think so,
or like a circus training center.
Well, apparently it's holy ground. So one of the rules for the immortals is like you can never fight on holy ground. And
the holy circus of medieval times. Yes,
yeah,
I'm familiar.
And it doesn't matter what denomination. Like as long as someone considers that ground holy, like you can't fight there. And so Connor McLeod goes to this Japanese cultural center to practice his sword fighting because there's a Buddhist shrine there, which means that it's holy ground. And when Kane shows up to confront him, he's like, we can't fight here. It's holy ground. He's like, I don't see a church anywhere. And so they start fighting. And as they're fighting, they go into this like weird like circus training center with like a trapeze and trampolines
swingy
and stuff.
Things.
Yeah. And so like they're jumping on trampolines up onto scaffolding. Then they're like grabbing these trapeze swings and they're like hitting each other's swords as they're swinging by, and it's the most ridiculous thing, and it's shot so terribly, like you can't really tell what's going on.
They start eating cotton candy out of nowhere. Somebody comes in with a corn dog.
Yeah, like the special effects in this movie were just so bad, and it was so poorly shot.
The balloon animals were great though.
Everything in this movie was just poorly done, and you could tell like nobody gave two fucks while making this movie.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've pretty much covered this movie. I don't think anybody's opinion is going to change over the next couple of minutes, but Vader, worst moment in this movie, and give it a rating.
The worst moment?
The worst.
Yeah, give me a minute.
I was all ready for my favorite scene of the movie. Which
have a favorite?
Well, it's just the Mako stuff because I like Mako. But the worst scene of this movie, dude, I gotta start writing this stuff down. I don't know, man. It's just a bad movie. It just took me out of it almost from the get-go. You know, just the weird inconsistencies with the first movie and stuff. It's just another hot garbage sequel to a really good movie. It's no good. It's if I have to give it a rating, I'm gonna give it a half star for boobs. So I'll go 1.5. You know, it's not quite as bad as that other tire fire that we just watched, but it's almost as bad. So
do you think number 2 is better than number 3?
I think this one's a little better than the other one. But yeah, so
wow.
4 stars, 1 star, 1.5 stars. That's in that order.
Okay. All right. On a whole, would you suggest people go watch the Highlander trilogy?
No. Go watch the first movie and don't worry about anything else.
It's a pentology, Alex.
Oh my God.
Stop.
We're all gonna kill you.
What? There are 5 movies in the series.
All right, Jude.
Just watch the first one.
Sure. Least favorite moment. Give this one a rating, and on a whole, the franchise as a whole.
Okay, so God, it's so hard because I feel like the second one is a worse movie, but I enjoyed it more than I liked this one. Like this one, I think was just boring. And it's my least enjoyable bad guy, which was kind of like the best parts of the other 2. So overall, I think I gave the second one 2 stars. I'm going to do the same for this one because it's kind of like they're balanced as far as like, it's not a dumpster fire, but it's also not laughable at all. It's just boring and not worth a watch at all. It's very forgettable for me. So it's also 2 magic slumbers out of 5 magic slumbers, I guess.
Okay. And would you suggest people go watch this?
Absolutely
trilogy
not.
of movies?
Absolutely not. Watch
Just the first one?
Watch the first one. Maybe watch the second one if you want to see something that's like laughable and absurd and not good, but you go into it knowing it's not good. Maybe watch that one. That's not even a full recommendation. But like by the third one, you're just gonna hate yourself. So don't do that.
Yeah.
All right, Kadish, how about you, bud?
Yeah, this is a 1-star crap fest. It's a blatant retcon of the series, and it's one of those things where it disrespects the franchise in the sense that it just completely ignores everything that came before it. It's a boring movie. The villains are dumb. The writing's dumb, the action's dumb, everything in this movie's dumb.
Yeah.
At least the second movie had some interesting stuff in it, like some interesting set pieces. They were trying new things. The second movie was still bad, but it was enjoyably bad. This movie wasn't enjoyable at all. It was just kind of like they were trying to rehash some of the best stuff from the first movie, and they didn't do a very good job of it. So yeah, 1-star crap fest. I'd say like, watch the first one if you want to enjoy the series. Watch the second one if you want to laugh at the series, and quit there because everything that comes after the second one just isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think this movie in particular is just straight up no stars. It's not good in any way. There's not a good villain. There's not a good fight scene. There's not an enjoyable kind of like campy laugh aspect to it. It's just bad all around. I actively hated this movie when I was watching it. I had to take a break. I stopped halfway through and I was like, I gotta go watch something else. I went and watched a different TV show, and then I came back and finished the second half of this, and I was just like, good God, man. Like, it doesn't get any better. I think the moment that really broke me, because you guys know I hate kids in movies. So this movie's bad already, but then they add the stupid kid aspect to it, and then they're like,
awful.
They're traumatizing him by driving him around an airport, and the bad guy's just manically laughing for 15 minutes. I was like, good. Oh God, I hate this movie so much.
Yeah.
No stars, not even worth it. I know there's a decent enough like boobs in this movie, but it's not even worth watching. You're gonna hate yourself for that like 3-minute part. You're gonna hate the rest of the movie, so don't even bother.
That part wasn't even that good.
It wasn't even that good. It's a 0-star movie. Don't it even acknowledge its existence. Don't watch it. Franchise as a whole, I'm with you guys. I think we're all in consensus on this one. The first movie, great. Second movie's funny, laughable, and then that's it. Just stop there. Don't even bother with this third one. All right, guys, that's it. That's our discussion for the Highlander movies. Tune in next week. We'll be talking about what are you guys talking about? I'm going to be gone next week. What are you guys? What's on the roster?
Movies.
We're talking about shitty space movies.
Shitty space movies. So tune in next week, guys. We'll have some fun with that. I'm going to be gone. I'm on my 10-year anniversary trip. So I'll be MIA, but I think Tom is coming in to replace me to fill in the seat. And then after that, we're going to have the Star Trek convention. So we have a really busy August, but stay tuned, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast, share this video with your friends, and comment below what you think of the Highlander trilogy or what is it called? Pentology. Comment below what you think of the Highlander pentology. And before we get out of here.
Wait, if you've watched all of the Highlander movies, you gotta say something in the comments. Like, what is your life? Are you okay?
Do you have a job? No.
Is there anybody that likes this movie? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
All right. Vader, before we get out of here, where can they find you on the socials, bud?
You can find me at MattVader74 on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, for the most part, and on Discord at our Discord as well, saltynerddiscord.com. I'm in there a lot now and hanging out, doing things. Yep.
Right on. All right. And Jude, where can they find you at?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'm not really on Twitter that much, but you can catch me on Instagram. I'm on there a lot. I'll respond.
Right on.
Unless you hit me with, well, hello there. I'm just going to delete you.
What if they're like, my name is Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod?
I'll probably try to bang them through my phone. I don't know how that's going to work, but I believe in magic.
It's a certain kind of magic.
There can be only one.
Is this wall okay?
That'll do.
Is this wall okay?
That'll do.
Matthew Kadish, where can they find you?
You can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish, on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com will take you to my Amazon page.
And I'm your host, the Salty Nerd. You guys can catch me on our Discord channel at saltynerddiscord.com. And I'll be there chatting it up and hanging out with our other Patreon members and other listeners of the podcast. So jump in there and hang out. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for
one more thing.
Go ahead, V.
Saturday mornings, come to this YouTube channel, hang out with me and Matt, and maybe with one of you guys one of these days. We stream some games and hang out and interact with our chat every Saturday morning around 10:30.
And thanks to everyone who's been popping in on the chat while you guys have been live streaming. That's pretty cool.
It's fun.
Yep. Yeah, we're growing the channel. We're expanding our content. So if you like watching video games, go join Vader. If you like watching editing videos, you can come join me on Discord.
I don't know if they're really enjoying watching me play video games because I do it very poorly. But we do have a good time hanging out. And Matt comes in and we chit chat and talk about nerd stuff and stuff we don't talk about here on the show too. So yeah.
Right on. All right, everybody. Thank you guys very much for watching, and stay tuned next week and stay salty, my friends.